Ian,
Yes.
we have a scumbag
Seller
of the week, maybe more than a week. This was alerted to us late last night.
Maybe of all time. I mean, it's bad.
This was tweeted a couple of days ago. Then we got an info dump late last night.
So someone within the big box PC game collecting scene,
that's a group on Facebook too,
right, has been outed as having sold an enormous amount of counterfeit copies of old computer games, largely the Ultimas and Aklabeth. Which was the precursor.
At this point, I think they're probably still trying to figure out the scale, but this guy was selling stuff for several years.
Right.
So it's like, this is early on trying to see what the hell do we have out here.
But it was first noticed as, who knows what else is there, but the first thing that people have noticed is the Ultima games, and just tons of them. Unfortunately, this guy who tweeted it, Dominus of Exalt, don't know his name. This used to be the centerpiece of my collection, rare and expensive old games. Now it turns out I've been scammed and sold forgeries by a well-known figure in the Ultima and retro games community, along with many others, and it shows basically all of his copies,
including something signed by Richard. Looks like Richard Garriott.
Yep.
So like that's where this is going to go. So the alleged counterfeiter scammer is Enrico Ricciardi. It's someone out of Italy, and they were also a moderator of the Big Box PC Game Collectors group. It sounds like on Facebook. So like this was a person in power,
right,
and influence in this community. I don't know. I collect big box PC stuff here and there. I've been doing it for a long time. I'm not part of any of these groups, so I don't know who. I knew who the players were, like on Nintendo. I don't know who the players are in this category here. So,
basically, they're looking for all sorts of stuff. The level of it's interesting when you just look at these, especially as a person like me, and I guess for a lot of the people here, too, who are collecting them. These are older games, the ones that he's been counterfeiting.
40-year-old games.
Yeah, they're the ones that come in, like, these are the ones that came in plastic Ziploc bags. They were a lot of, there was a lot of, like, hand-done stuff, basically. Like the Aklabeths that, use two labels. There's one over an existing label. And but once you start comparing these, the forgeries are pretty obvious.
Yes.
One of the things that, and I guess I should have thought about it, collectors don't really play this stuff. And if this stuff has got to be worth a lot of money at this point, you're probably not taking a magnetic disc out and playing it.
Well, computer game collectors don't.
Right.
A lot of them don't have, like, I don't have a nice DOS machine laying around.
Right. There are some people who will do that, but it's not everyone.
Not everyone has an Apple II that's functional.
Plus,
or
you
an
can
Atari
emulate.
Or an Atari computer. Sure. Exactly.
And you can emulate. So a lot of times people don't ever touch this stuff. Which brings me to my next point. Some of these counterfeits didn't even have game data written to them.
Sure.
They were blank, not unreadable, just blank. They were talking in this info dump we got about how there are tapes that actually have like music on them instead of game data or nothing at all.
So the counterfeiter, the alleged counterfeiter, didn't even go that extra step in order to put the proper file on there. Probably realized they're never going to play it, which is kind of funny.
Yeah,
that they didn't go that, which is probably the easiest step, to just copy it over.
Right,
you find a floppy, 5.5 on an old computer, and copy the data over.
There's ways to write from a PC to an Apple disk, like you could literally just.
And the person never did that. The one in question, real quick. The one in question I've seen a lot, and I could almost always find a copy for sale, is the California Pacific Computers Aklabeth.
Sure.
So we're talking the early Aklabeth. Top of the Orchard software. It has the green and white label on that. I can't tell you how many times, Ian, and I'm not saying I saw all counterfeits. I used to see that on, whenever I was just search for old games, I would see that a decent amount of time.
Sure.
And I don't know how many of those they made, but they couldn't have made that many that 40 years later they were almost regularly for sale.
I remember sitting at the Retro Roadshow at Portland the one year, and someone had that, and we were
same one.
I'm pretty sure it was that.
Well, that was one that sold them.
And we were talking about it, and they couldn't remember like what it would be worth. So I remember looking it up, and I remember saying, "Oh, there's a couple of them on here, and not as expensive as I would have thought. Expensive, but not as expensive as I would have thought.
Maybe like a few $100, couple $100, $100.
I think maximum like $5. I think, but I think it was like $250.
So this is what I'm going to say is this. One of the reasons, this goes back to what we talked about, will PC gaming ever be as big as console gaming? One of the reasons why this flew under the radar is one of the reasons is that there's a lot less PC game collectors, where like it wouldn't be noticed as easily. When it's a smaller group, it's not. When it's a more trusting, smaller.
I was going to say, in a smaller group, you feel like a club, and there's higher levels of trust.
Yes,
retro gaming got so big and so out of hand that everyone got to the point where they were jaded or leery of most interactions and sales and things like that. But in a computer group like this, it's a smaller hobby. These people have probably talked to each other for years,
for years
and years. It's unfortunate. I feel like it's got to be heartbreaking for some of these people to realize that, a person that they looked up to, a person who was considered like a paragon, the word of the scene, and ends up being the person who shoves it out or sells the shit. But that's the thing. These people, once they get into a position of trust, they know they're not going to be questioned.
Yes. And then I guess a lot of the times probably, we're talking about PC stuff being hard to find versus games. I mean, the scales, we talked about how, the PC stuff was an older crowd 40 years ago. The people that bought this were already adults. They probably threw that stuff out, retired. You know what I mean? Like, that wasn't transferred to kids. It was worthless stuff,
right,
in the 80s and even the 90s. The stuff from the 5.5 floppies, we tossed the ones out that we had, even like the ones that were copied games that were. Like,
you still find boxes of 5.25 floppies at or five. It's 5.25, 3.5.
Yes.
Okay. You still find boxes of those at flea markets and shit, and they're worthless.
Yeah, a lot of them are worthless.
The amount of like media, like physical media out there, is huge for these computers.
But in terms of like these games like this that didn't have a big print run,
sure,
they were tossed.
Yeah.
Like there's looking at one of these things. There's a Japanese PC-88 Mystery House release. So Mystery House was the first graphical game that Sierra did. And so this was I gotta shut off my email there. So this was something that was sold to let's see, which I just lost it because I'm trying to shut things up. Was this the one that was sold to Kevin?
Yes.
This was sold to Kevin. So he went through the contents and went through them and looked at the label of the floppy and could tell that it looked like some form of a scan.
Talking about the dot background in the back, yes, like you can see it even gets like a little magenta and cyan.
And the label was hand cut.
Yeah,
not from a machine, because a machine is precise doing, yes, those, versus hand cut. You're going to do it with a scissor, or even like one of those little arm things go down. It's not going to be 100% perpendicular and squared. Yeah. Stuff like that. Color differences. The feelies, like, it looks like the instruction little paper. You can tell the same thing. It was different color paper,
different color, different material,
pattern of cyan and magenta ink. So,
and one of the things that they mentioned in this that I just want to point out, they printed the wear onto the labels.
Oh, really? So they even examined the label to see if it was real wear.
It's printed, and wow, one of the labels they show,
they basically use a Photoshop file.
In one of the photos they show, there's an indent. There's like a almost like a nail mark, like on the label,
printed on.
But when you examine it, it's not actually there. It's printed on from the scan.
So these collectors took it for granted that they were getting. They weren't even examining what they got.
Right.
They were not even playing it. They weren't even opening these up and examining them. They thought, oh, it's real. The box looks okay. It's real. Basically, going back to the California Pacific Computers alphabet, this person, Kevin, I was talking about that. Talking about the dot pattern from the printing on there. Talking about. You can see the dots clearly. You can see like the red around the green printing from, like, we're talking like just like a laser printer that did that. And then there was the cassette, the Dungeon Quest Temple of Apshai, which was a tape game. And this is the one where I saw this and I was like, I know it's hindsight's 2020, but when you see the tape,
did I not see that one?
At the bottom, the tape, you can tell instantly something's up.
Yeah, because
you can tell that the way it's cut and the way it's placed is not, like, it's not even centered. Like when you saw stickers on cassettes from the 80s, it was an oval around what do they call the two gear things in the left and right, those two wheels?
Sprockets.
That's what
That's what I'm gonna call it.
So this person made labels, printed them in Photoshop. They said even the font was different like on the address. They couldn't match the font entirely. The silver looks even different, but that's fine. So when they put it on, you got to place it by hand. It's not even close to being centered on it.
And I've always said that when it comes to counterfeits, like talking about NES ones,
it's hard to put those labels on.
The label is the first thing you got to look at, because unless it's being done by a machine, it's always going to be a little off center.
Yeah, because even you use like a tweezer and put that on, you got like to apply that evenly. That's tough.
I'm sure there's people out there, maybe like model decals, builders, who can do it. But exactly.
People probably put decals and stuff like, yeah, that's tough. So that was Kevin's stuff, and there's a few other documents. There's also, I guess, like a master document. And shout out to the community for not only kicking this person from the group, but also putting together these documents so quickly. Within a couple of days, they put it together, talking about other ones that have been found from alleged counterfeits from Enrico Ricciardi here. From like this Ultima Pro game version. I think you mentioned that one.
Yes.
The colors are
when we were looking at it this morning. The colors are totally fucking wrong. Yeah.
And I think that's what goes back to like expertise in circles when you have a smaller group of people to rely upon. And there's less people that have this stuff to say, hey, like if I was buying a little Samsung, Ian, I could find a collector to show me a little Samsung.
Sure.
It'd be a lot tougher for me to find some of these games quickly for something I knew and trusted. Hey, Ian, show me your Ultima, the pro game version of it.
Right.
You have that. Oh, yeah, pal, I'll take a picture.
Sure.
Like, that's a little bit tougher.
1 second, buddy.
And that's what I mean. We're talking about games that are like, you're not going to find these easily to begin with. And there's less collectors. So the colors are totally off. They're like, I mean, the saturation levels, you want to call it the vibrance, they're just totally off. Like the blacks.
They're wrong.
Yeah, like for example, like the counterfeit one, like the background is like black, and on the real version, you can see more of the flame browns and reds coming through in the background. And again, it's hindsight, but now that people are looking at this, it's like totally opposite.
It's tough, and it really does go all the way back. It's just it's a matter of trust. This guy earned these people's trust and fucked them. Took him for a ride.
This Lord British photo, you can definitely see the difference in the contrast and the white levels of him in the packaging.
It's clear. That's another thing people lose when you do scans. One on the back of the boxes shows like when you're reading the address on the back, it's missing the comma because it's just something a scanner might not have picked up.
Sure, that's a good point. Or maybe they redid it and forgot to put it in.
Right.
With the font, but either way, it's not there. The photo quality is night and day in terms of it. It's not even close there. The manuals, different colors, clarity in the copy.
One crazy one that I want to point out is that there's the autograph in gold. They showed these autographs.
Okay.
They scanned the autograph cover and put it on another box so it looked like it was autographed, but the autograph is in the exact same. They scanned both of them and overlaid them. It's the exact same. So one of them's not even a real autograph. It's printed on.
So it's both a forgery now, potentially,
yes.
and well, was it? It was originally an autograph, and now it's, or did he?
Yeah, it was an original autograph that was actually
new box with it,
and then they scanned it and printed a new box with it.
I mean,
insane.
So this person was prolific. We're talking, they're finding tons of examples of this. Again, this is all early Ultima and Akalabeth, which became, Ultima after that. They were talking late 70s, early 80s games here. I think at some point, someone must have asked, like, how does this one person have all this stuff in Italy? How do they have all this stuff that, came out here, and they have all these different variants of this stuff?
Well, too? I mean, I want to say, I don't know what the demographics of that collector group are, but if they're all in the US or mostly in the US and you've got some guy in Italy, it's easy to just think, he's some eccentric collector who's got a lot of money.
Yeah, because I've heard
he's overseas.
Yeah, international collectors.
Yeah, there's lots of them. I mean, there's in France, there's a shitload of like really high profile PC Engine collectors. So it's probably not hard to just be like, okay, this is a guy who has money and he's spent the past 10 years building this collection.
This person also counterfeited, like, they put like version stickers on, like circular stickers. Yeah. They did that. So they figured out they were hand cut. They weren't like perfect circles, or they were like rotated in different ways. They were, because they're put on by hand. So this person did they did a bang up job fooling people for years.
Yeah.
And no one just checked. It looks like they even weathered some of the boxes. That's what it looks like. They did some weathering on the boxes to make sure that, it looked older. So this is what I'm going to say. Obviously, once, any sort of hobby becomes bigger, you're going to have potentially fakes and counterfeiters come into this. The problem with PC gaming is that it's so much easier to counterfeit floppy games All you got to do is find. There's tons of 5.5 you can find from old games that are worthless, or even you can find. I have a box of unopened, sealed 5.5s I bought at the flea market. You can find that, Ian, and then it's just doing. Then it's just doing the labels at that point.
Right. It's
just so simple. You want to say, hey Pat, oh yeah, you can try to do a little Samsung. I don't think there's been a case of someone that's been fooled by a high-end cart game yet.
No, I don't think so either.
Because once you open up, you got to do the board too.
Yeah.
And that's where it's like really tough.
That's a lot easier to discover the issue.
But even the labels are usually pretty clear. And even even the plastics are,
different. I always talk about how I can see especially with like N64, for example, I can see a counterfeit by its plastic before it's in my hand.
But even if you use like a real game, Ian, to try to do that, you're going to the label and the board. That's where it's going to be tough. That's where it's going to be tough. To do that. And there hasn't been, from we know, something like this ever happened. Prototypes is something different. Prototypes, there's so much less knowledge when it comes to that stuff. They are only one-offs. People have been fooled. WADA's been fooled by them for games that were made up to be prototypes that were not really prototypes. They were just, they found just boards and put the game code on there, you know, and things like that. That's totally different. Commercial products, I have not heard a good story about a high-end scam besides Neo Geo games.
Neo Geo games.
Because those, for some rereason, are super easy to produce, for whatever reason.
Right.
That's the only weird thing. They fake cassettes here as well. So yeah, it's really, I feel bad. This person, they're in another country. I don't know if they're going to be held accountable for all this stuff. Yeah. Real quick before we end this, they did put out like a good sort of anti-scammers guide.
Yes.
That unfortunately, it's like you wish people would have this and would be hearing this all the time. But it's almost like you have to have something bad to happen to wake you up.
You do. And, we talk about how, if a scene gets, you just mentioned, if a scene gets big, it opens it up to scammers. Yeah. But a scene that stays too small, it is entirely based on trust. And especially like something like this, where the wealth of knowledge is not as great as video games, it's easy to find a scammer. They just have to... It's almost more disgusting because it really relies more on trust.
Yeah. Here's some of the advice. If it's too good to be true, look past your excitement for the object you've been wanting for so long. I think that's probably what a lot of this is. These are like games where, I'm not going to see another one of these in for years. I got to buy it now.
Yep.
I got to buy it. Compare a copy you were thinking of getting to a known verified copy online. That's the first thing I did when the person approached me, Mike, with the gold NWC card. Ian.
Sure.
The first thing I did was like, are any of these images he sent me online? And once I verified these are all unique images,
do your reverse image search
do
first.
all that. Look for every known instance of it. Look on Nintendo Age. That's what I did. Wow, that was like, goddamn it, 11 years ago.
Jeez.
Well, I looked to make sure. Okay, these are all unique images. So either this guy made his counterfeits, or this is real. That's like we quickly figured out that it was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like that's what I did at first. I didn't just say, oh, here's the money. Right. I literally flew after the guy and examined the game in hand. I literally did that. What else? Beware vague origin stories. That's good. Old man who had a software store. Allegations that it came from the original game developer. It was a gift. It's like, insist on PayPal or a method that gives you some kind of protection. Yes. Not just wire me the money.
Right.
The old wire me the money thing. If you're going to spend a couple grand on something, you can afford to tell them that you'll be having it examined by an expert under a microscope. Yes. Buy a freaking little glass, a little like magnifying glass at the dollar store. Like, look, you can do that at least. And then red flags on here. If the seller insists on keeping the trade or sale secret.
Yes, absolutely.
That has never happened to me, but I guess it must have happened with this individual.
There was, I think, when you read through everything, there's like 2 or 3 examples of him telling them to keep the trade secret.
I would first ask why.
Why? Yeah.
And
why?
They would say, well, I don't want to piss people off. It's like, that's weird. Remember, the job of the con is to sell you. They have a reason for everything, including explaining away concerns. Yes. Inconsistencies are explained away with a possible second print. Yes, this happens, but the older a title is, the chance that a new print would alter things more dramatically is going to be slimmer. We're talking about games that didn't get huge runs to begin with.
Exactly.
We're going to do second print runs of these of a TRS 80 version of a game. No, that's not going to happen for the most part. There. Forgers tend to have an obsession with pointing out forgeries and sharing details of what makes a copy authentic, usually using their own material as evidence. That is funny to me. I guess it probably happens in other fields as well.
Right. No, I'm sure it does.
That's pretty funny. Any other ones that you see that are interesting? It's just you gotta be careful. You're spending 4 figures on games, maybe 5 figures. You gotta put in your due diligence on this.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you got to fly out to get things, but I mean, you have to ask around on this stuff.
Yeah, you do. I don't have a whole lot more to say. I think it's awful. I also don't know that I wouldn't have fallen victim to, I mean, think about it. And then it's just, it's a sad story.
Scammer tries to call into question how knowledgeable the other collectors are. So trying to say, oh, we don't know what they're talking about. This is real.
Right.
Oof, God. Yeah, it's a sad story. If this was like someone selling, hard to find NES games or something, it would be like, huge news.
Massive.
Talk about the volume of collectors versus the PC gamers. So I hope there's recourse, but it sounds like a lot of these are, this guy's out of the country, which obviously is helpful if you're going to do a scam. Yeah, for him. I just feel awful about it.
No, it sucks.
And Enrico is a scumbag seller of the week.